Hello everybody, this is Jai Cross with the 7 Sacred Directions. This is a day of completion because this is the last episode in our 6-month series together. Today we'll be honoring Grandfather Sky and Source, the last 2 directions in our journey. I want to start with a ceremony. We'll use this as the initial grounding. This ceremony will be partially a construct of your imagination, because I'm going to ask you to imagine certain things. But I want you to open to the feeling behind these mental constructs. So you'll be tracking a visualization in your mind, but also you'll be very centered in your heart area as well. So let's close our eyes. Coming fully present. Using the breath to draw our energy back inside of our bodies and beings. Sinking into the fullness of this moment together. And now in your mind's eye, imagine that you're on a prairie. Medium-high grasses perhaps as high as the knee. A light breeze is blowing across through the grasses. You feel it on your skin. You feel the warmth of the sun shining down on you. You smell the richness of this area. Hearing bird song in the distance. This is a place of life. This is a place of sacredness. Looking around you, you notice that there are others in this meadow. And that everyone's coming together to form a large circle. Joining your hands with those of your neighbors, the circle is completed. And you feel not only your energy, but some of the group energy. That energy seems to be spiraling in a clockwise direction, coming in through your joined right hand and moving out through your joined left hand. Creating a whole, much bigger, much stronger than the individual parts. And everyone turns to face the east because the sun now is just rising over mountains to the east. The ceremonial leader, I stand in the east. I have on robes of different colors. I carry in my right hand a staff, which is adorned with sacred fabrics and with feathers. And I lift that staff, pointing it towards the east, as I say. East, element of air, we welcome you into this sacred circle, this place of healing, this place of wholeness. Air, we feel you in our bodies. And feel your breath taking the air in, circulating it through so that its healing powers touch every cell in your physical being. And on the exhalation, expelling anything that's no longer needed to make space for the next inhalation, for the next inrush of energy. Air, we ask you to bring your gifts to this circle your gifts of inspiration and insight, your gifts of clear thinking and seeing, so that we may know you better. Aho! I now move around the outer perimeter of the circle to a southern position. And as you look up, you notice that somehow the sun has traveled all the way to its highest position. It's straight overhead. You feel the heat coming down. As I say, greetings to the south, an element of fire. We ask you to join us in this sacred circle of healing and wholeness. Come, be a part of our celebration and our ceremony. Be with us. Fire, we feel you in our bodies, in our bellies. That fire of chemical metabolism. That fire of passion. That fire of life. And take a moment to really feel that for yourself. Fire, we ask that you bring your gifts to this circle of purification, of cleansing, so that we may be fully present in our time together, so that we may know our true selves and express them in good ways. You're most welcome here. Aho! Once again, I walk along the outer perimeter of the circle, this time to come facing the west. And again, the sun has moved through the sky to a position of evening time. There's a moisture in the air, a humidity, not unpleasant. It's awakening, enlivening. It wakens our skin and our beings to feel it. We feel more alive in its presence, as I say. I call to the west and the element of water. I invite you to join this circle. Come be with us so that we may know you better, so that we may benefit from your presence here. We know we are creatures of water, and we feel water within our bodies. So now become aware of the beating of your heart, the pulsing of your arteries, the flow of materials through your body, carried by blood, which is mostly water. Water, we ask that you bring us your blessings in the form of fluidity and flow and freedom. May we connect with our emotions in a good way, not shying away from them, but honoring them as they arise, giving them expression, giving them life. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Aho! I continue on my circular walk, this time coming to position in the north. Once again, I raise my ceremonial staff as I say, greetings, north, element of earth. Please come and join us in this time of Thanksgiving. We welcome you. We feel the element of earth so close to our beings in our fleshy forms. We are aware of our bodies and the gifts that they bring us. We are aware of the senses that connect us to our environments. We are aware of our groundedness, our connection to the earth and the things of the earth. We ask that you bring us strength and stability and solidity so that our dreams, our innermost values, may be manifest in tangible ways during our lives. We are honored to have you as part of our circle. Aho! At this point, I walk to the center of the circle. Place my hands on the earth. Great Mother, Gaia, Goddess, Spirit of the Earth, we acknowledge your presence and we welcome you into this circle. May you fill it with your compassion, with your love, with your creative energy, so that we all experience that flow of earth through us, that tingling vitality, that ineffable sense of life itself flowing through us. Thank you, Mother, Grandmother, Great-Grandmother, for being with us. Aho! I now rise and reach my staff up to the sky. Father Sky, Grandfather Sky, Great-Grandfather Sky, we would invoke your presence. We ask you to shower your blessings down upon us. May we feel and be aware of our energy field around our physical forms, connecting with it in a good way, so that we may bring good things forth. And may you stimulate and more fully awaken our sense of dreaming and visioning, so that we participate as co-creators with the energy of sky. Aho! Now, placing our hands in the center of our chest, we invoke the seventh direction, Source, indwelling divinity. Imagining a part of ourselves going deep inside our physical form and connecting with the stillness, the silence, the depth. Aho! The circle is complete. You may open your eyes. That's similar to how I start many ceremonies when we're gathered together in person. And I thought it only fitting that we go through one invocation that includes all of the 7 directions at one time in this series. It's always important when you invoke these helper spirits, these allies, to eventually release them. So we'll do that release right at the end of this broadcast. You know, in truth, the elements, the directions, and their gifts, their virtues, are with us all the time. And yet, with our tendency to wander, we often forget that. And so many ceremonies are simply reminders of the fact that we are very well connected. So for the next hour, we will be very much supported by these allies that I've just called in. And when I release them, You're always capable of reconnecting with all of them or with a particular one on your own. What is required is respect, strength of intention, and some diligence. So it's not very difficult, but it does require sincerity. Well, today I'm going to start talking about Father Sky or Grandfather Sky or Great-Grandfather Sky, whichever label seems most apt to you. Of course, we're invoking family ties. We're reminding ourselves that there's a kinship between us and the sky, the energy of the sky. This is a strange period in history. As a race, we know more about the sky, the stars, the supernovae, the meteors, the asteroids, the pulsars, the black holes. We know more about these things than ever before in the history of humanity. Quite possibly in the history of intelligent life, native intelligent life in our solar system. We've made great advances with things like the Hubble telescope. And yet at the same time that astronomers are accumulating all this knowledge, and we see these wonderful photographs of distant galaxies, different things, at the same time, common people know less about sky phenomena than ever before in human history. It's very easy, excuse me, it's very easy to imagine our ancestors sitting around a campfire at night when they were more closely connected to the earth and to the sky, looking up and seeing what we label as constellations now. Constellations, stars, planets, meteors, all of the wonders of the sky. It's easy to imagine that they had an intimate knowledge of those things. Their reckoning of annual cycles was based in large part on phenomena they saw in the sky. So in a very real way, their lives were tied up with the timing of sky events. So they paid close attention. They kept track of things. They remembered them from year to year, from decade to decade. And of course, this information was passed down to succeeding generations. But there was also a personal connection to the sky and the things of the sky, which most of us seem to have lost now. I live in the country, a very rural area in northern New Mexico. A lot of times people who come out to visit with me to spend a few days or a couple of weeks are amazed by the diversity of things they see in the sky here, because there are very few competitive lights. So the sky is right there. It seems so close to them. They're looking up and seeing the Milky Way with thousands upon thousands of different stars out there. They're just amazed. Wow! Haven't seen something like this since I was a small child, is a common reaction. But for the most part, people live in cities. They don't see very much of the sky, and what little they do is pretty easily dismissed. Oh, there's the Big Dipper, as if that explains what those stars are really doing. Sometimes we settle for a label instead of a real understanding, instead of a real personal connection. Well, previous cultures were very different. And I want to use the Incas as one example, and perhaps they're a little extreme example, because the Incas saw themselves as children of the sun. They felt that the sun in the sky was their divine father, and they prayed to Inti, their name for the sun, every day. Not only as a physical body, a life-giving physical body to bring its light and heat and illumination, but also as a spiritual body. And oftentimes the term for that, instead of Inti, was Hatan Inti, the hidden sun, the sun behind the sun. This was the spirit giver, the creator. One Incan prayer that I do most days, especially when it's a day without clouds in the morning, just as the sun's rising over the mountains that I'm looking at right now, the Rocky Mountains, the southern branch. Let's do this together. Close your eyes and imagine it's a slightly chilly morning just before sunrise. And you're standing with me in my driveway, facing the southern Rocky Mountains. There's still snow on top of them right now. So we're feeling that briskness of the air against our skin. But we see the light gradually getting brighter in the east. And we know that any moment now that sun's going to pop up over the distant ridge line. We're going to be blessed with another day. So here comes the sun rising up over the ridge, that golden rim first exposing itself. And all around us the light starts to change as things start to wake up. The sun seems to rise so quickly. All of a sudden it's all the way up. You see the whole orb above the ridgeline. And we're going to do 3 deep intentional breaths together, imagining that sun out there. On the inhale, we draw its light and its spiritual light into our belly areas and circulate it through the body. On the exhale, we send some of our unique light back to the sun as an offering back to it, an offering of gratitude. And we do that 3 times. So 3 intentional breaths with that visualization. At the conclusion of those 3 breaths, I say a simple phrase: Noen kani, noen kani, noen kani inti. That means I am the sun. So let's do it all together. Noen kani, noen kani, noen kani inti. You may open your eyes now. That's such a beautiful way to start the day. It doesn't take very long. I'm usually outside at that time anyway, taking care of the animals, so certainly no extra burden for me to be outside at sunup. This ceremony doesn't have to be performed at sunup. I just feel it's a great way to welcome the sun back to my little neck of the woods. But it connects me with that source of sky energy. It's much more than a symbol. It is a source of sky energy. And as we all know, without the sun, there wouldn't be any life on planet Earth. Very necessary part of our existence here. So it's a good idea to offer some respect to those things that sustain us in these forms. I usually combine that ritual with a spoken prayer of gratitude for allowing me one more day in human form on planet Earth, because that really is a special blessing. It's very easy to get caught up in the details of life and the small things and to overlook the big stuff. So this is one way to start a day off with a reminder. Yes, this is good. Well, the sun and sky energy in general is generally perceived as embodying the divine masculine. And I know I'm on shaky ground here. When you talk about masculine, feminine in this culture, there's so many misconceptions that it's easy for people to get triggered. So I want to explain exactly what I mean here. I'm not referring to societal roles that are assigned to gender. I'm talking about a series of beliefs and understandings that are common to indigenous cultures throughout the world. And that is that the earth is rooted in feminine principle. That makes sense to me. The earth's mother. The earth gives birth to things. The earth is a very loving, compassionate energy. Very maternal, ideal maternal. Maybe not everyone's mom lived up to those aspects, but the ideal maternal. A lot of people are very comfortable talking about the sacred feminine. And quite obviously, our culture as a whole has lost touch with that aspect. But many of those same people are not very comfortable talking about the divine masculine because they've seen masculinity so misused. They've seen masculinity distorted and perverted into power that is used to subjugate and to dominate. This is not at all what I'm referring to when I invoke the divine masculine. So let's talk about some of the qualities of sky, and there'll be overlap with divine masculinity. There are three that I want to focus on. And the first is presence. That quality of ours to bring ourselves fully in to the moment. In the Bible, when the burning bush appeared before Moses, a representation of the Holy Father, the burning bush called out to Moses, "Moses, Moses." And Moses replied in Hebrew, "Hinane, here am I." That word choice is very interesting. Because when I hear that story, I feel that he was not just saying present, I'm over here. He was saying, I'm fully present. I'm ready to receive what you're ready to share with me. So that sense of focus, of being able to bring the full attention to bear in the present moment, that's a sky quality. And I feel that in large part it's masculine quality. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that just men can focus and be present and be attentive. We've all got both genders within us. I tend to view myself as about 60% masculine, and I am in a masculine body. But about 40% of my personality, my inner attributes, I would identify as feminine. So we're all both. And we can all call on those qualities, those talents, those aspects when they're appropriate. It might seem a little odd that focus is a quality of sky, because certainly out here in New Mexico, you look up and the sky is so expansive. The sky is huge out here. But it also has the ability, the energy of sky, to narrow itself down and to be like a laser beam. So it has both. Another quality of sky that I want to mention is guidance and inspiration. These tend to be mental aspects. And you might remember in our discussion of the elements and cardinal directions that it's the direction of east, which is associated with air, which is associated with the mental bodies. Well, obviously, there's a pretty close correlation between air and sky. They work in union. They're allied powers. There's a lot of similarity and overlap. So with inspiration, I often think of inner powers, inner clarity. So inspiration, insight, to my mind, primarily comes from within. There might be an outer prod, but it stimulates something beyond our thinky, talking mind. Something that's connected much deeper. Something that brings us into a different realm. And certainly if we get inspiration and we're aware of our intuitions and we don't follow those, we don't bring them to term by acting on them, we're essentially disrespecting them. And that energy oftentimes becomes unavailable to us. On the other hand, if we do respect them, and that doesn't imply acting on every impulse that arises, but if we at least fully acknowledge them and consider them and listen to those internal voices, then we're developing a communication network that can flow more easily, that can give us messages from the inner realms more easily. Of course, there are also messages from the outer realms as well. And this I refer to as guidance. So sky energy is associated with the inner and also the outer. In terms of outer guidance, I'm referring to things like angels, guides, deities. Many of these are sky-based. Of course, there are a lot of earth-based deities as well, but the ones who serve primarily as messengers are usually thought of as being entities of the sky, like the sun. Odin, the head of the Norse pantheon, was seen as dwelling in Valhalla, in the sky. And his messenger was the eagle. Would bring messages from him down to humans, and would conceivably also take human prayers, human requests up to him. And this has correspondence in a lot of other cultures. The Zuni Pueblo Indians, for one, see eagles performing a similar function. Tiwanaku in Bolivia has a lot of carvings of eagles as messengers of the sky gods. So a lot of overlap between different cultures in very different parts of the world. The third quality of sky energy I want to mention is intent. Again, calls on that ability to focus, to bring ourselves into the present moment, to set a course of action and to stick with it. And I would say that men are really good at this, and at times they're way too good at it. Because a lot of times their guidance doesn't come from deep within, doesn't come from an outer spiritual source. It comes from this chatterbox, which spins out a lot of ideas. And if you give allegiance to that, it can take you in some very off-course places, some very off-road directions. Unfortunately, with the power of intent being so developed, especially in men, oftentimes they don't realize that they're going in the wrong direction. And I think that explains a lot of the current environmental mess that we find ourselves in. When I look at recent history, I've got to say, of the genders, it's primarily men that got us in this one. And it's going to take men and women to get us out. Well, that's if you follow a false intent. One that doesn't really take you where you want to go. Let's talk about the other kind of intent, the one that is in alignment with your energy, with your purpose, with your higher calling. It's in harmony with your inner promptings and also your outer guidance. What would that kind of intent look like? I've got a story to illustrate just that. I heard this story from Archon Lushwala, a Peruvian shaman, a man of great wisdom, great spiritual accomplishment, yet a very humble man. He was telling me about a man who lived in Central America, and I imagine this was Guatemala or Honduras. Let's say Honduras, because that's on the Gulf of Mexico, and this story involves a hurricane. Hurricane was coming across the Gulf, and it was headed straight for the village where this particular man and his family lived. This was a traditional man. He held to the ways of the elders. He lived and farmed the same plot of land that his father had done, that his grandfather has done, his great-grandfather had done, as far back as anyone in the village could remember. He'd been in one place. He was very well rooted, and he was very well connected with the spirits of the land, of the directions, and of the sky in that particular locality. But that one spot is being threatened by a hurricane. In fact, the meteorologists had predicted that it was going to go straight through his village, the village that he lived on the outskirts of. So there was a massive government evacuation to get people to safety, to help them to leave their ancestral lands, go to a refuge, and then return. But he refused to leave. This one man said, no, I'm going to stay here, my family's going to stay here, and I'm going to do my best to protect them. But he was taking on a hurricane. So what he did is, as the hurricane's getting closer and closer, and his neighbors are gone already, his wife's with the children down in their cottage, doing the best that they could to stay safe, seeking positions where they would have some protection. This man goes out on a hill with his bow and 4 arrows. Now, this wasn't a challenge to the hurricane, and he wasn't trying to kill the spirit of the hurricane, but that's all that he had. A bow, 4 arrows, and a very powerful intent. Tremendous focus. And I can well imagine that he was acting on guidance, whether inner prompting or something that came from a spirit helper, instructing him on what to do. Well, one by one, he pulls that bow back, lets an arrow fly into the tempest, into the approaching storm. 4 times he shot. Then there were no more arrows. And, seemingly miraculously enough, the hurricane shifted a little bit. And although there was destruction all over the area, this man's farm, his lands, his animals, his family, his house were all spared, as was he. So that might seem like a fairly fanciful story, and I'm not recommending you do that if there's a storm watch in your area. But it raises the question, what are your 4 arrows? What would you use in the face of impending disaster? Would you seek to run away? What if that was impossible? What if you were compelled to stand there and to hold your ground? What would it be? What would you call on? Well, I've had longer to think about this than you, so I'm going to tell you the answers that arose for me. I have a shamanic drum. It allows me to journey into the spirit realms, to make contact with my spirit allies, and to receive guidance from them. So that would be one of my arrows. I would definitely look outside of myself for some wisdom on how to best proceed. Also have an altar that I pray at quite regularly. That could be a place for me to go and ask some questions to seek guidance. Also carry around a pack of tobacco, a little handmade pouch from Peru filled with tobacco to give as offerings. That could be one of my arrows. Offering to the spirit of the hurricane or whatever. Explaining that this was my land, that I was caretaker for this land, that I couldn't abandon it. I couldn't abandon my family. I couldn't leave my animals. That I was willing to suffer whatever fate was intended, and yet asking that it be averted. And the fourth arrow, let's see, what would my fourth arrow be right now in this moment? Dreaming. I would dream on it. I would vision in that way. Yeah. Archon told me, never do anything on your own. He didn't mean get a big band of guys to go out and do stuff. He meant bring your allies with you. Call on your spirit helpers. Have them present in everything that you do. Not just when you feel threatened, but in everything that you do. So when I'm out working in the garden, or I'm out cutting wood, or I'm out working on the community irrigation ditch, I bring my allies with me. And I'm very conscious of their presence. What I'm doing is invoking sky energy in a way that's real for me. And if that feels phony to you, well, maybe it's not for you. But it might be the mind's skepticism getting in there. Because sometimes the mind doesn't want to relinquish control. Even when that control is being offered over to wise ascended beings who have our best interest at heart. So I feel very comfortable with sky energy, and I try to follow that advice, not to do anything on my own. That's what sky's all about. It's there to help us, but we have to reach out. We have to make the first move. We have to break the ice. Because they're not going to intrude on our lives unless their help, their guidance is asked for. So my recommendation would be to ask. That doesn't mean that you have to plead in a way that diminishes your humanity. You can stand up tall just like that guy was on his hillock and ask for things. He asked that his land and family be spared. And sometimes our prayers are answered. I want to shift tracks now and talk a little bit about source, the inner direction. I think of it as our indwelling divinity. The Toltecs Field, that it differs a little between different branches, but either at the moment of birth or the moment of conception, a particular ray of light comes down and enters our physical form. And that ray of light expresses itself when we're true to ourselves. When we sing our own heart song, it's that particular ray of light that's coming forth that we're allowing to shine through us. I love that imagery because people do have different colors different qualities of light that they bring through. But it's not a competition. They're all beautiful in their own right. In fact, they're all dazzling. And you know when you're in the presence of someone who's letting their light shine through without censorship, without holding back. It's a beautiful thing. I feel that that's our birthright. To shine, to self-illumine in that way, and to share our light with others. Not trying to cancel theirs out at all. Not trying to outshine everybody else. But just simply to be ourselves in all our magnificence, in all our glory. There's a word in India, a Sanskrit word, Akasha. And you might have heard this in terms of the Akashic records. Akasha refers, the literal meaning spirit. But it also refers to that element that unites the other elements and harmonizes them. That would be source. So, as we've gone through the different directions and their associated elements, east, south, west, north, earth, sky, there's a direction associated with it. But now we're talking about the inner direction. I am that. I am that unique ray of light. And then a lot of other things too. A lot of things come through in a human incarnation. Hopefully we make good choices about letting that higher quality, that higher vibration stuff come through, at least some of the time. Wanted to read a quote from Archon. Again, that's Archon Lushwala from his book, The Time of the Black Jaguar, and I wholly recommend this book. It addresses the current environmental crisis, but it does so from a spiritual standpoint. And it hearkens us to live our full lives, to be true to ourselves. Archon's a very optimistic man. I appreciate that about him. He feels that we're going to come through the crisis, but we really better get on it. The time for action is now. And he finished his book with the quote, "At these times of renewal of life on Earth, new designs, new life, and new tribes are being animated. We who are here now are being invited to come closer to the center and take a look at what's happening there. We are invited to come closer to the heart, where colorful seeds of life are germinating, and radiant designs are looking for a path to manifest their physical existence. When these lights come through us and move us to do something, it is good to do it without allowing our doubts to interfere. It is the essence of life that is seeking to continue living and multiplying itself through us, the human race." Good stuff. With the design of this series, I've been talking about the directions and the elements as though they're separate, but indeed, there's an integration between all of them. With our minds, it's easier a lot of times to work with particular qualities. Right? It allows us to get that focus that I was talking about, to become fully present with an aspect of existence. But it is important to realize that everything comes from the source. The differentiation into elements and directions and attributes was secondary. There's a primal unity to all life, to all spirit. Sometimes we refer to this as the web of life, but I'm talking more a deeper level than that, a spiritual integrity, a spiritual union. And it's important to recognize to acknowledge and to pay homage to at least once in a while. To realize where we came from, what we are. So I have a closing prayer, but I want to release the directions and the elements first. And I'll do this fairly quickly. Inner direction. Let me thank you for being with us during this time. You are released. Sky, energy and entities. Thank you for holding us in this wonderful way. Thank you for sharing with us, allowing us to feel your presence. You are released. Great Mother Earth, we so appreciate the way you tenderly support us. Thank you for allowing us to feel you, even more than usual. You are released. Direction of the North, elemental Earth. We thank you for these bodies. This chance to feel physical sensation, to participate in our environments through our senses. You are released. Direction of the West, element of water. We appreciate the flow that you grant us, the emotions that we've been given, and the depth that we can attain. Thank you. You are released. Direction of the South, element of fire. Thank you for purification and for passion. The way we have of being able to move past things that no longer serve us, allowing us the opportunity to embrace newness. Thank you. You are released. Direction of the East, element of air. Thank you for your gifts, for these wonderful minds that have so many different levels, so many different possibilities. We're especially thankful for the inmost, for those places of intuition and insight and inspiration. May we honor those. Thank you. You are released. Aho. The circle is complete. So we seek balance, we seek integration, and we do that with respect and humility. We do that in a good way. We do that with our hearts. The minds are included, but primarily following the guidance of the heart. I want to read a portion of a poem by John O'Donohue. I think this will be a very appropriate way to finish this series on honoring the 7 sacred directions. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. I'm going to skip a little part of the poem here, get to the end. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. May it be so. Thank you, John O'Donohue. Well, of course, this series is coming to an end, but we've got more stuff for you. A lot of good things coming your way on Human Spirit Radio Network. Every Friday of the month at 2 o'clock, we have Maria West and her show, Waking Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life. She's very passionate, and I recommend you check her out. Second Friday of each month at my show, 2 o'clock Pacific again. My new series is going to be Sacred Topics. I'm going to start out with sacred time because a lot of us get caught up in the busyness of life. So many people I know, close friends, colleagues, spiritual teachers, I'll see them, I'll say, what's going on with you? What's happening in your world? And oftentimes I get the answer, I'm so busy. There's so many things happening. I feel like I'm being overwhelmed. It's spinning out of control. There's too much. They're great possibilities, but it's too much. So I thought that the first of the sacred topics that we should broach would be rooting in to sacred time. Find out how to deal with all these things in a good way. Because if we get busy and worried and anxious, it pulls us off our center. And we start responding with diminished parts of ourselves, when it's always possible to connect with that deeper level, to allow our unique ray of light to shine through whatever circumstance we're in, whatever task we're doing. The third Friday of each month is Sarah Mccroskey's show. She's the Human Spirit Radio founder, a remarkable woman, an energy worker. A lot of times she has on different guests and interviews them about their modalities, their work, their visions, their passions. So check that out. The fourth Friday of each month, and all of these are at 2 p.m. Pacific time, is Amanda Eloise Johnson with the Conscious Evolution of Divine Feminine Archetypes. I listen to this show quite regularly. There's a lot for people in male bodies in here. Amanda is something of a seer, a visionary. She goes very deep and she has a lot to share. So I encourage you to check all these out. You can find out specific show titles and contents by visiting the humanspiritradio.com site. There's a lot of stuff there, a lot of articles. You can get on their list to get a monthly reminder of upcoming shows. And as always, these broadcasts are presented entirely free of charge. They're all archived, so they're available for you to listen to at your convenience. I've really enjoyed our time together. This has been a wonderful 6 months for you. If you missed any of the previous shows on directions and elements, I would encourage you to check those out in the archives. This whole series has been videoed, so you can see it as well as listen to it. And you can find those links on the Human Spirit Radio site or on my website, jicross.com. Thank you for being a part of this. Aho!